This call goes to the West Coast in the Los Angeles district, to a man who has contributed to the world of books, to the world of music, composer and clarinetist, Spanish guitarist, arranger, Artie Shaw.
Thank you.
Good to have you there.
Well, I don't know, I can't be anywhere, but I am, but it's good to be here. Got to be anywhere at my age.
Well, the blessings of the spirit of eternal youth, sir.
Well, yeah, I don't know about eternal youth, but eternal time.
Eternal time. And you did write a book on time, didn't you, in the essence of it?
You mean a book called what?
Time is all you...
Time is all you've got. Well, that wasn't a book. That was a documentary film.
That's right, a documentary.
Won the Academy Award in '87, I believe.
And you certainly have been written about, reported about over the years, and you are a man of great opinions. But I have a curiosity about the European classical composer that attracted your ear and stimulated your interest. Who were some of them?
Well, started with Stravinsky. That was the first time I became aware of that kind of music at all, because I was self-taught. I'm typically autodidact. I left high school when I was at 15, and have been running ever since. Until recently, when I kind of slowed down a little. But I first heard Stravinsky when I was in Chicago. I was in a record store, and somebody was playing a record in the booth next to me. And then after that, I gravitated over to Debussy, which is quite an antithetical sound. And from that, I got all over the place. I wound up with a lot of Bartok, and now lately Beethoven, as a matter of fact. And A minor quartet, I never cease to marvel at that.
As far as in the days when you were playing clarinet, the classical artist whom you like to do solo work on...
Mozart was one of them.
And you performed that publicly in London, didn't you?
The Mozart Clarinet Concerto?
Yes.
Well, that's played almost everywhere. Clarinet player plays Mozart, and I had one written for me by Dello Gioio, and I played the Brahms Quintet and the Mozart Clarinet and String Quintet, etc., etc. That's all over the place, you know.
What about that muse that has haunted you off and on through the years?
What do you mean by that?
How do you describe that muse?
I don't know what do you mean by muse?
Well,
I don't think in those terms.
Well, in an abstract way, I suppose, thinking about what really stimulated you and made you think in a...
Well, one of the things that stimulates me is a month goes by without a check.
I understand.
I mean, like anybody else, I'm driven by the same economic forces that drive us all. The rent has to be paid, food has to be got, the IRS has to be paid. So I do that, and one of the things I do is play an instrument. I used to. I haven't done that in years. And finally, I decided I wanted to write. It was for me, much more congenial type of work. You weren't under pressure when you're writing. Oh, you're under great pressure, but it's internal pressure. You can handle that. Playing an instrument in front of public gives you a lot of public pressure, and I can't handle that. I don't like it much.
Artie Shaw, what images are in your head right now?
Well, I can't speak about images, but I've been listening to a recording of mine of my theme song, Nightmare, which is not one I'm used to. That's not the one that's been published. It's a different take from anything I've heard. Where did you find that?
That's on the air and an off-the-air recording, and I will give you the details.
It's taken from a live broadcast, then.
Yes.
I see.
And I believe it's from the Hotel Lincoln.
Well, that could be. It's something I wrote in about, an hour, because I was told we were going to go on the air, and I didn't have time to arrange for a theme song that, like most people did. So I thought, all right, I wrote something which had the ability to be stretched long or short, depending on the amount of airtime left after a broadcast. And we called it Nightmare. What else was it? I call it something. Had to call it something.
Was that inspired by the delights or the lack of delights in being in the music business?
No, I don't get inspired. You work every day at something. You do it, and that's all there is. These words about inspiration, it sounds like you sit there and suddenly an idea pops into your head. You've got to work at it, and if you keep working at it, something comes out. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. You throw away the bad and keep the best you can do.
Here's another theme, and I think it belongs to an orchestra that you said with tongue-in-cheek was the Lawrence Welk of the jazz business.
Oh, yeah, that is.
Well, Artie Shaw, you worked opposite and tracked across the country in parallel with this orchestra and many others as well.
Oh, no, we were there ahead of him.
Yes, you were. And you had the formula for your success ahead of him, too, didn't you?
Well, I don't know what formula you're talking about. I played the best music I could find and played it the best way I could. That was the only formula I had.
I have another band here that also was certainly a part of the scene and somewhat, unrecognized. Artistry unrecognized, I think. But that's an opinion. Here it is. Well, there they go, on fire somewhere in the horizon back in history.
I couldn't tell who that was because I didn't listen to long. I didn't hear anything specifically individualistic about what I heard. Sounded like a black man.
It is Jimmy Lunsford's band.
Oh, well, yeah, that's one of the good bands.
Did you ever?
One of the most overlooked bands, because it's one of the most underrated bands around. It was a very fine band.
Did you ever?
Everything he did was good.
Did you ever play opposite him at all?
Well, I don't know what you mean by opposite.
Well, perhaps
the same venue.
The same venue, Savoy.
At the same time, no.
Uh-huh.
But I knew Jimmy, and I knew the band. I knew the playing. I heard them a lot. I thought they were the best black band of their time, better than any of them.
What distinguished them, do you think?
Well, there was a lot of discipline about it, but not forced discipline. The men played with great deal of bravura, a great deal of zest. They played with a great deal of love in what they did. They were a fine band. I don't know how to talk about bands. You know, they were good. They were always on the edge of their ability, and now and then you'd hear a mistake. That was the trouble with the second band you played. When I said they were the Lawrence Welk of jazz, they never made a mistake, so that meant they were playing safely within their limits. That's not the way you play good music.
And when your organization was functioning and developing Begin the Beguine and Frenesy, and were the same conditions evident, the discipline?
Well, I got the men to play at their best ability, but now and then when you play publicly, a guy hits a clinker. You can't help it. If he's playing at something at the best he can, he's going to make a mistake now and then. He's supposed to play over that and go right through it. I remember this happened with Billy Butterfield once. He hit a high E flat that splattered all over the walls, and he came to me after and said, "Yeah, I'm sorry about that." And I said, "Don't be silly. Keep doing that. If you don't splatter once in a while, I'll know you're not trying." He said nobody told him that before. It freed him. He was able to play what he wanted.
As you worked in the band business, what did you discover about leadership?
Oh, I don't know. Set up a standard for yourself and maintain it. If you do that, the men will respect it. Eventually, you have to understand that.
And what was your standard?
Self-discipline is the important thing.
The real key.
I think so.
And then what?
And then what? Then what?
After
there's
discipline.
No then what? When you get there, there's nowhere to go. Just keep doing that.
Long distance to Los Angeles, California. He's very gracious taking time to talk with us. The legend, Artie Shaw. And Artie Shaw has a jaundiced eye and a evaluation sense that is straight, arrow, and honest. I asked him
I wouldn't say it's jaundiced. I think it's pretty. I try to stay as neutral as I can.
I see. Well,
but when things are bad, I say it, and when things are good, I say that. Unfortunately, George Gross was a great painter. He wrote a book that I thought had a great title, A little yes and a big no.
Well, as you look at the music scene unfolding where jazz is concerned in big bands, I think you mentioned the other day that the scene was ascending mediocrity and
Descending. Yeah.
not ascending. And
It's getting worse all the time.
any
Because
hope?
it's being run by people whose sole motivation is how much will it make? Not how good is it? How to make more money rather than how to make it better. No one's concerned with quality anymore.
If you had the power to change the music business, what would you do?
Well, the first thing I would do would be imprint on everybody's consciousness 2 words. Pay attention. People don't pay attention to music anymore. They're listening to sound bites, and they're listening to, quick, sudden illumination. Everybody wants instant knowledge, instant recognition, instant everything. You have to pay your dues. You have to learn what you're doing, and you have to pay attention. Pay attention to the 2 key words I know.
Thank you, Artie Shaw.